Well, I was working primarily with refugees who are, of all the immigrants that are out there, they're kind of the sympathetic immigrants because of their conditions prior to coming to the country. But I was instrumental in getting an immigration department set up at Catholic Charities that also that had attorneys and paralegals to deal with the other types of immigrant populations, not somebody coming in here on an H-1B visa or something like that for work, but the undocumented and that kind of thing. And some of the advocacy centered on the driver license bill that was proposed several years ago and unfortunately passed, that limited driver's licenses to certain groups of people. But we did make a difference, and the bill ended up not as bad. I'll never forget the sponsor couldn't understand why I was still advocating on behalf of Archbishop Kelly, because he hated that bill. And to kill the bill. He says, we made the changes you wanted. I said, that doesn't make it a good bill. It just makes it better than it was. It's still a bad bill and shouldn't be passed, and we're going to still try to kill it if we can. So, I don't want you under any illusions that, yeah, we're grateful you made some changes, but we're not at all happy that you've got this bill here.
And where were those immigrants coming from at the time that you were?
Oh, for refugees, they were coming from, when I first got there, it was primarily Vietnam. The Cambodian thing was pretty well passed. Vietnam, and then Bosnia, Iraq.
Were the Ethiopians coming in?
No, we had some Libyans who were on the outs with, I'll never forget that one. We resettled, I don't know how many the country took in, but there was a whole pool of people who were anti-Gaddafi. And the U.S. knew that they were in danger, and I think they may have even cooperated with our government at one point. And so we were taking 8, but we didn't even know. It was so secretive in terms of when they were coming. You get word at the last minute on that. Usually you have a month's notice or so, get an apartment ready, and this was like, they're coming in tonight, something like that, just to protect them, because you couldn't tell when the movement was going to happen, so that Gaddafi wouldn't pick up on it. It was really fascinating. But a lot of the, out of the Hutu-Tutsi war there, Rwandans, a lot of Rwandans.
The war that they say America ignored for a long time.
Yeah, and the Somalis, a lot of Somalis. And I got lucky enough that I was selected from, I don't know how many even applied, but anyway, I was selected by the State Department to go and update U.S. personnel who were doing resettlement programs in Kenya and Cairo, Nairobi and Cairo, who were doing orientation programs, because there's not always an orientation program for refugees, but in many cases, if they've been in camps for a long time or they have access, they can actually set up programs and try to get them ready for what to expect when they get here, because the America that they think about is not the America that exists. And they get here and they find out it's really hard, But these folks, they're resilient, they're tough, they're grateful. And for all those people who think that we just hand stuff to them, they come in, they get a guarantee of their rent paid for 3 months, and that's it. They have to take the first job offered to them. I don't care if they're a medical master surgeon somewhere. Washing dishes may be the job that they get. You try not to, you try to match people, but sometimes language barriers and things like that just don't make that possible. And if you can keep their hope alive by saying, you're going to start here, you're not going to end here.
They didn't know English, a lot of them.
Oh, most of the people, I didn't resettle any populations that knew English.
So in 3 months, they...
Yeah, they're in school trying to learn and do all that kind of thing. And some of the, like Bosnian refugees, are a highly educated group of people, the Cubans. The one thing Castro has achieved there is people get an education.
Yes,
and so they come here very highly trained. And but you get someone from a tribal area in one of the African nations, and their lives are so totally different. They're not sometimes they may not know what
The sink, the
how to
bathroom,
turn,
flush
well,
toilets.
how to turn
yeah.
a stove on sometimes, or what a canned good is or something. I mean, it's,
Is there anyone, and you helped to resettle many, is there any one story that really just sort of broke your heart or sticks in your heart, like you remember, or?
oh, I don't know, I saw so many. No, it's just, it's, they're all good. There's this one case that we got involved in more than usual, is that there was a Bosnian family, and I don't want people to leave with the idea that this guy was a bad guy. He wasn't a bad guy. It's a very male-oriented,
Hierarchy.
yeah. But it was the husband, wife, 2 children. And after a period of time, I think the stress, he went a little bit off, and he decided he needed to get back and fight the war. And he was going to take his wife and kids with him. And they finally came to us, the wife did, and told us the story of what was going on. And I said, well, we can help, but she's going to have to really stand up to him. There's no doubt about it. And so we rigged up this plan. Fortunately, he didn't have a passport, so he couldn't leave the airport. And I got to the airport first and got the authorities lined up, went through this whole charade of packing, everything, putting it in a van, taking it out to the airport, getting
Like
in
he
line.
did, yeah.
Sorry, you can't go. So then it's on them, not on her or anybody. So then the next time he went and got a passport. I hid the family. And he comes in and he says, I can't find my wife. I said, I don't know where she is. I said, well, I'm going to go leave. I said, well, do what you got to do. And he flew back home. They're still here
The
and
family.
successful.
Did he ever make it back?
Back here, no, not to my knowledge. The other thing I remember is not about one family. It's more about attitudes. There was a day when the people where many refugees were being resettled were again upset with that. It was different. Their neighborhood was changing. All that's kind of understandable. But Iroquois Manor would not exist, frankly, now without refugees and immigrants. I mean, it just wouldn't exist. So in terms of that, it's really good for the community there, but not everybody who lived there at the time felt that way. And then I learned from a friend at City Hall, called me up one day and said, you didn't hear this from me, but there was going to be a resolution filed by Dan Johnson to block Catholic Charities from resettling people in his ward. It was at that time, it was still the city.
Dan Johnson was the Metro Councilman.
Yeah, but he was a alderman before.
Alderman,
So this was while there was still aldermen.
Okay.
And so then I called a friend, and I said, I can't call Sheldon, but you can call Sheldon.
Sheldon Schaefer at the
And
Courier
tell
Journal.
Sheldon, Sheldon Schaefer, tell Sheldon what's going on, and maybe we can get some advance press on this action. I said, because this is clearly illegal. So we did, and that's what happened. And Dan was still going to follow through, but we had a vigil, and people from all over the city came out to St. John Vianney, which was in the district and near the complex where people were living, on a candlelight ceremony on behalf of immigrants and refugees. And Dan then dropped that and called me and said, what's the problem? Why do you put them here? I said, because, Dan, they need affordable housing. And the U.S. government only supplies X amount of dollars for their housing for the first 3 months before they go to work. So you need some money. I said, yeah. So if I give you $50,000 a year out of my funds, my
Neighborhood funds and whatever.
yeah, whatever they call those things, that would help. I said, yeah, but let me make it clear, Dan. That doesn't guarantee they won't be in your district. You can't give me money to move them somewhere else, But that money can be used when we can now look somewhere else. And he did that for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, I don't know, 10 years.
And this wasn't a matter of race, because these refugees were...
Oh, no, they were all colors. They were mostly,
Yeah,
at
right.
that point, the Bosnians were white.
Right,
You know,
right.
it's not like it was race. It was they were foreigners, and they were not us. That's what it was. And even the school system here, one of the former superintendents, I called him on it one day. He didn't know who I was. I was sitting there without a Roman collar on, and he's going off, he's mouthing off about Catholic Charities bringing these people into the community, expecting us to take care of them. And I raised my hand and I said, I'm sorry, this is the U.S. government who we're working with, your government and mine, and it's your job to educate children. And it has nothing to do with Catholic Charities. And these kids aren't even Catholic. So, you know, get that straight. And because
That's another case of not in my backyard
this
kind
attitude,
of. Yeah.
you know, is amazing. So, I don't know,
Well,
pisses me off.
your life is so interesting.